A disturbance in the stew, I feel. New Jedi listeners. Strong they are. Subscribe they must. Yes?
Hello there. You will go to the Dagobah system. There you will learn from Yoda, Master of the Stew.
A Jedi's strength flows from the stew.
There'll be no one to stop us this time.
Strong is the stew.
Yoda. You seek Yoda.
Yes.
Hello there and welcome to Yoda Stew, the strongest stew in the galaxy. A Jedi's strength flows from the stew. This is your dedicated spot for all things Star Wars. I'm your host, Ezra, here to guide you through the latest Star Wars news, insights, and discussion from a galaxy far, far away. Hey Star Wars fans, welcome back. Back with me today, my good buddy and yours, Sir Matt. How's it going, man?
Oh man, I'm doing good. As you and I were just talking some wild Star Wars theories before we hit record here, that we'll have to come back and do some dedicated stuff on, where we got maybe something kind of fun planned for a later episode. You know, we'll keep that under the wraps for now. But man, it was some fun, like the wildest of wild Star Wars theories.
Yeah, pretty really wild. I mean, I forgot I got my green screen still up here from that little pre-business meeting here. Let me switch that off. Holy smokes. But yeah, I mean, no, it's gonna be fun. We've got some Matt came up with a really, really cool idea. Something that goes back probably 6, 7, 8 years.
Yeah.
God, that is it's so crazy to think back over that amount of time, and just, yeah, but it's genius, and that might be coming down the line here. So but buddy, we've got literally just a bunch of different things kind of in this lull for Star Wars. I mean, the last time we talked, the Star Wars news was literally a bunch of Star Wars content creators hating on each other. I didn't do it yet, but I almost clipped up, and I'm about to, where you essentially say, it's Star Wars exposed, dude. How'd you know I was going to say that? I mean, God, that's what that was. That was that whole... Man, that was a mess. It's still kind of going on. There's still a few things happening here and there, but some good came out of it. To follow up on that conversation, Stupendous Wave is now podcasting with Star Wars Theory, and so there you go. You know, we bring, like, good things can happen despite all the mudslinging that goes on in the community. But that was the news the last couple of weeks. But now moving forward, essentially, we've got a couple things here on the dock we want to talk to you guys about today. Various projects coming up. I will say, because sometimes I forget to say this, there are actual major spoilers, and I'm just dropping these on Matt. He'll drop a few on me. It's literally just to get our reactions. There's some crazy stuff that I found this master doc, and I might put a link to it for anybody who wants spoilers down in the description. It's insane. I found it on Reddit, and these guys are just a community coming together, like posting spoilers, and they have all their references and all of their sources, which is pretty cool. You know, you've got Bespin Bulletin, right, Matt? We used to talk for years. Bespin Bulletin, pretty solid in terms of their
I
leaks.
agree. I think I've always thought Bespin Bulletin is pretty legit.
Yeah. And we've got, like, Making Star Wars, and there's just, again, different things. There are some people on here, like, I don't see Mike Zero quoted on here, but, like, there is a guy that's very, very similar to Mike Zero who's quoted on here a couple times, and people are like, come on, that's trash. But so take it all with a grain of salt. It's just for fun, and it's really just to, speculate about some things coming up here in Star Wars land. So we'll talk about those, but just be warned that there are spoilers that, as I read them, I was like, oh my God, this actually could be real. It really could be legit. So we'll get into those here in just a second. But before we do all of that, we want to jump into something I think is going to be really neat. So we've got some exciting news. And Matt knows more about this than I do, but this is seemingly sick. And I have vivid memories playing this game. Star Wars Episode 1 Jedi Power Battles is coming to Nintendo Switch January 23rd. Like, sick.
Yeah, it's from Spire Media. They're pretty much a studio that handles porting games. Like, they take old games and sort of bring them up to newer systems. They've pretty much done all of the games that have been coming out, because they've been re-releasing pretty much all the old Star Wars games. They did Battlefront 2, classic Battlefront 2 that they brought back and even had online servers. It kind of had a rough launch when it came out, but they sort of, patched it up and got it fixed. But they did like Jedi Episode 1 Racer, Dark Forces, pretty much all those fun classic games from like the 90s, early 2000s. And now they're doing one of my personal favorite Star Wars games, which is Star Wars Jedi Power Battles, which actually is kind of an interesting game if you look at just when it came out and what the deal was, because oddly, they released 2 games at the same time, which are almost the same game. They released Star Wars Episode 1, which is a action adventure game where you play as Obi-Wan and Qui-Gon and go through sort of the events of Star Wars Episode 1. Then there was also another company at the same time that released Star Wars Episode 1 Jedi Power Battles, which is the same thing, right? And so some people sort of prefer one game to the other. I've always thought Power Battles is more fun. It's a little more arcadey, and you get to pick a lot of other characters. And one of the cool things about this game is that Mace Windu is in it, and they all have their own individual powers that they can do. Other than that, you're just running with a lightsaber, whacking and cutting through endless battle droids. Yeah. But Mace Windu in that game has a blue lightsaber because pre-episode 2, any promotional stuff with him had him with a blue. There actually wasn't a lot of stuff with him having a lightsaber, but all of that promotional stuff did have him with a blue lightsaber because he hadn't chosen the purple one yet for episode 2.
Yeah, which is wild. I was actually looking at the trailer that they released, and then at the end they sort of show him with the appropriate purple lightsaber, and I was like, "Oh, hey."
They're doing some overhauling to this game, yeah.
Yeah, which is cool. It looks like there's gonna be bonus levels and different things and other cool updates. But you're right. I was actually kind of confused. I'm thinking back to when I played this. I know I played Jedi Power Battles, but I think I played the other game too.
Episode 1,
yeah. And I just was thinking. I think they are. Once
they're
that,
like the same thing, but it's just weird that 2 games came out and they're like the same. Normally that doesn't happen. It's normally like you get, if you look at the episode, like really when the Clone Wars kicked off, that's when I'd say that's honestly kind of like peak Star Wars video game history.
Yeah.
Because, in the 90s and stuff like that, there were Star Wars video games that came out, like the series on the Super Nintendo, the Star Wars trilogy. And, there were some other games. There's like some arcade games. And then when the N64 came out, we got Shadows of the Empire, and the PlayStation 1 got a couple games. But I would say really it was when the Attack of the Clones came out was when suddenly there was like a mass amount of Star Wars games that were coming out, but they were all very different things, right? Like you got Episode 1 Pod Racer. Of course, that went with Episode 1, but it came out after the movie. And then when Episode 2 came out, like they did like another pod racing game, right? Like Racer Revenge, which you actually play as like Attack of the Clone Anakin, who has never stepped foot in a pod racer, but like it's just like they're literally trying there was a bunch of Starfighter games. There's Jedi Starfighter, there was the Clone Wars game, there was I'm trying to think, Bounty Hunter, which came out, which is pretty cool. Okay. And they actually just remade that. They actually just remastered, kind of ported that game not too long ago. And then of course Knights of the Old Republic 1 and 2 came out, and those are like the big ones. But then we got the Battlefront games. Though that's, if you look at like the majority of Star Wars games that exist, they pretty much all came out with the prequels.
Yeah. Those were, I'm looking at different people talking about the memories with those. The nostalgia around those games are freaking sick. They were awesome. I had a blast playing a lot of them. And question for you, just to switch gears for a second. Is there any update on, you talk about remastering games, the Knights of the Old Republic stuff? Is there any? Yeah,
so Aspire is this company that has been doing all of these things, and that's when you and I go back to, I think we did this on Hyperspace back in the day, talking when it was first announced. Is I had said I was kind of confused that Aspire Media was the one handling it, because they're a studio that hasn't really made their own game, and this is the obviously they're not talking about just like sort of remastering Knights of the Old Republic. They're talking about like a full-on remake that you would expect to see from like a big AAA company like an EA You know what I mean?
Gotcha.
Like a Jedi Survivor level type of game, or Star Wars Outlaws. But
Right. Yeah.
I mean, to that like level of game is what you'd expect. And so then it was kind of put on hold, and then it was kind of said, well, it might not be happening. It's still kind of murky, just like Rogue Squadron or any of the movies. I'd say that it's in sort of that element. There's another one too, Star Wars Echoes, or what was it? The one that was announced by the company
Star Wars Eclipse.
Yeah. They said like that's like we probably wouldn't even see that until like 2028 or 2029 or something.
Gotcha. And that game, they didn't really say like
they had like a cool trailer for it, and then that's all we've ever seen.
Gotcha. Yeah, because people were asking like it looks like it was supposed to be High Republic or maybe even before that, or we're not really sure.
No clue.
Yeah. Dang, that is wild. And the trailer and stuff came out around the time they were doing all of the High Republic stuff with Charles Soule and all of his Light of the Jedi novel. It was around the same time when we saw that. So people were speculating it could be them, but really you can't tell. It reminded me a little bit of the old Knights of the Republic, video games and stuff. So I don't know if they're going to go even further back or what the deal will be there, but it looked freaking awesome. And again, there's one, trailer versus what they actually are able to pull off is a whole different thing. But yeah, I don't know. It looks cool. And you said that was
Quantum? I forget who the developer is.
Dream,
yeah, it's the same. I think they had worked on like the
Quantic Dream,
Heavy Rain, or some of those PlayStation games that are they're almost kind of like choose your own adventure type games.
Okay. Yeah, I was looking at it here, and it looks
they're good. Yeah. Quantic Dream is the name of the company, and I believe they did Heavy Rain, Beyond Two Souls, Detroit Become Human. They're sort of like choose your own adventure games, where you just like then it sends you down a different path, right? And it's like totally different path, all depending on your choices, similar to like The Walking Dead by the Telltales series. They did like a Game of Thrones game or something like that. Those are kind of the same thing. And the games they've made, like Heavy Rain, is fantastic. And I haven't played Beyond Two Souls. Detroit Become Human is pretty good too. So these games do take a lot of time to develop. So
yeah, I gotcha. Okay. Well, it's cool. Hopefully we'll get some updates. I know we have Star Wars Celebration in, what is it? I think it's Tokyo this year or whatever. So maybe they're saving some big updates. We get typically a lot of news drops there. So we got time, and we'll see. One question I had for you, just from, I've been watching some of your reels and stuff again over at Super Gains Bros. Any more updates or any more discussion? I was reading some of the comments over there too about Ubisoft and Outlaws and stuff.
Ubisoft stock has now declined so much that the company's board of directors are looking into it. They said we got to do an investigation to see what's going on here, and the company may get bought out or go private.
Right.
Yeah.
Wow.
It's not all from Star Wars Outlaws. They also delayed the most recent Assassin's Creed to like February. Okay. But I think it's Star Wars Outlaws is sort of which they said. They've publicly said that it obviously did not meet sales expectations, right?
And why? Why? Like it's just the glitches, or is it?
No, it's the game's pretty mid. It's in the develop and the CEO even said, he's like, we just can't really make games that are average anymore. It's like, maybe you should try and make good games. I don't know what else. I don't know what else to tell you. Some of the mechanics, like the stealth mechanics and stuff in that game, like people literally have broken them down compared to the Assassin's Creed, which is Ubisoft's like big game franchise, and they're like the stealth mechanics and the games from like 2009 and 2011 and those Assassin's Creed games are better than the mechanics in Star Wars Outlaws, which was developed in 2024, 2023, 2024.
Dang, dude. Yeah, that's unfortunate. You can't really skimp anymore, and it does show, and people will know. It's a tell. Also, I kind of wonder, like, I know people were interested in some of the underworld, the criminal syndicates, and all that kind of stuff. It seems like we all want either like a movie or a TV series, or we've wanted something that sort of addresses that, like the video game
Star Wars 1313.
Right. It just didn't feel like it had that edgy grittiness that we're kind of expecting. It still is almost like a little too cozy, too comfy. It just felt too, I don't know. It just, when I was watching it and watching some playthrough stuff on it, I was like, yeah, I don't know. It doesn't really feel the way I would. Maybe for kids it does, and maybe their audience is again, people younger than us. But I don't know. It just didn't come across the way that I thought that maybe it should. And the story, and then who,
Yeah.
I don't know.
I think Star Wars has this problem when it comes to the criminal underworld, which is this other piece of the Star Wars puzzle. And it feels like every time they try to get close to that, then they shift to being like, yeah, but we still have to get back to the bigger picture. Right? Like even like look at the Mandalorian. Like,
Yeah.
That's what we thought the show was going to be. And I love the Mandalorian, but I mean, once Luke Skywalker shows up, now the whole show's about Jedi, and then Ahsoka had shown up as well, and so it sort of shifted the whole thing. Whereas season 1 is we're bounty hunting, right? We're dealing with the remnants of the Empire, and we're getting chased by the Republic. But of course now it's still going to drive back to that bigger narrative, which is Jedi and the Force and all of those things. But I mean, I would at some point hope we see a Star Wars project that is just that is just the criminal underworld and exploring that. Like Book of Boba Fett kind of was that until it ended up having an entire episode and a half dedicated to Mandalorian. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Jedi, Luke, Grogu, the whole thing. Yeah, which is crazy. They were starting to do it, and then they just derailed themselves. And like you said, the Mandalorian starts off addressing that. You're legitimately like, hey, I can bring you in cold, or I can bring you in hot, right? Like,
it's such an amazing opening episode.
Yeah, it's so sick. And he's got the bounties, he's getting his pucks, and he's going out and he's doing his thing. They've got the bounty hunter creed, all of it. It's just really cool. And it's a great setup. And like you said, it kind of gets taken over by the Jedi and the New Republic and where things are going. And we sort of drift further and further away from it. Our bounty hunter is now roped into this higher calling, which is, I guess, okay. But like, we wanted to see something that stayed there and have those other characters. Like, I wish inside the Mandalorian that this whole Mandoverse that they're building out, we would have a TV show or something that did have a bunch of crime bosses and crime syndicates, and we really understood them better. And like you said, Boba Fett was trying to do that, but we got to know them and some of the underlings who might betray them later on. And then you start to weave in all these other characters who are your heroes. You got to have some heroes in those shows too. But yeah, it's just, I mean, I get that it's a struggle. I understand that you've got to kind of thread the needle with that, and somehow figure out who your audience is and what you're going to do there. For example, like when you look at, well, I was just gonna say, like the Acolyte, for example, is like they tried to go too dark, and then it's gonna be about the dark side, but then you're gonna throw a bunch of Jedi in there and then make the Jedi look like trash.
Right.
Like you do have to thread the needle to some degree. So, anyways, go ahead.
Like who are those? In Clone Wars. Remember Ahsoka? I think they showed back up in. They weren't in Rebels.
Black Sun.
No, the two sisters. I think they were in Bad
the Martez.
Batch. They were in Bad Batch. Yeah, I think they showed up back up in Bad Batch. But you know what I mean? Like take them for example. Like they essentially live almost their entire life except for like the one meeting with Ahsoka in the sort of criminal underworld.
Right.
Like we could do a story that's like them, right?
For sure.
That exists inside of the criminal underworld, and clearly they're making their own way. And you look at some of the other characters that we've seen, like Sid in the Bad Batch, right? Who they get their missions from, that. Like, and that actually might be oddly the best, like just almost pure criminal underworld show is the Bad Batch, because that might be the only thing that really stays true to it the entire time. I mean, you're dealing with the Empire, but you don't really deal with Jedi that much in that show.
Right. No, that's a good one. And maybe even doing something. Sometimes we think about live action shows and stuff, but maybe even just doing something that's animated would be helpful. And you could do there's still stories with Kira that they could do. She's still out there. They did comic book versions of her, and Darth Maul was running a crime syndicate. There's still a ton of stuff after the Solo movie that they could be working on. and we don't really know where any of that goes. We mentioned the Pikes here and there, the Hutts obviously, but still, like that. Like again, Boba Fett started to do that.
Solo was that. I mean, yeah, Darth Maul at the very end has the cameo, but outside of that, it's pretty much just criminal underworld.
Right. What was the?
And they're like,
we don't
want anything more to do with that.
Yeah, right. True. What was the game? I'm totally blanking on that we used to play. The bombing run game where Galaxy
Empire at War.
Empire War. God, I can't believe I forgot that. Empire at War, man. That was fun.
Tiber Zan, the expansion. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Empire at War. That was such a fun game, and I remember like the pirates in that were cool. You know, and there was tons of that back in Legends, and I feel like we need more of that. And that's Han Solo was so popular because again, he was wheeling and dealing with those guys, and yes, he gets called up into the rebellion and does his thing, but yeah, he was still a scoundrel. He still sort of played both sides, and I feel like not that the Mandalorian's gone soft on us, but I mean, you got Grogu, and you've got this whole responsibility. It's been wonderful and it's great, but we needed somebody who still kind of, you know, hung around with the low lives and was kind of bouncing in and out of the cantinas, and you know, like Lando could have been that. And we talked, I think, last time that they want to do potentially a Lando Calrissian show, and that would be cool. They could keep us in the underworld there a little bit more, but that we need more of it though. I just think we need more of it in Star Wars and in the Mandoverse. And I
100% agree. I think something like that. I mean, like there's definitely older like EU books and stuff like Shadows of the Empire actually is. I mean, you're running around with Luke, but it's really all sort of from the perspective of God, how am I blanking on his name?
What was his Dash
Rendar. I mean, so stuff like that. I think actually that'd be a really good place to do. It would be to remake / kind of bring in like a Dash Rendar and redo a Shadows of the Empire, and something like that would be a really cool way to
absolutely sick. Do you know one thing that
Dash is officially canon? That he was like he's literally like he is. I have it over there. It's some tie-in book to Solo that's meant to be like a guide to some outpost that he goes to, and like Dash Rendar has like scribbled his name onto a table or something. So like he is officially canon.
He's canon. I mean, if you know, Disney's looking for products and they're looking for movies and TV shows and things that would sell, that would be cool. And you know, I don't know. Sometimes I like to throw out some pretty crazy ideas, but you could literally do Shadows of the Empire. There's a book, as Matt mentioned. There's a game. There's tons of story around it, right? And you could actually take that very character and make him the protagonist, right? Of that, and then call it that, and just his
ship, the Outrider, is in Episode 4 when George Lucas redid in the 90s. They added that in.
Right. True. So he's there. I mean, like telling something. They're doing all these comic runs where they're kind of burning through a lot of the story of Luke and Han and everybody else. But there are other stories going on that you could do a Shadows of the Empire situation and have that be just one movie. Go do it. Go make it crazy. And that character, let's say Dash lives on, and all of a sudden you want to pop him into the Mandoverse or something later on. That would be, I'd lose my mind. I mean, again, they're sitting on gold. And they're golden stories, golden characters. Why did they bring Thrawn back? So people forget Thrawn is a purely Legends character that Dave Filoni said, you know what? That character was freaking great. We're bringing him back for one of the first decisions that Disney and Lucasfilm makes in the Star Wars Rebels animated series. It's like season 2 or season 3 right at the end of it. But early on, they're saying, we're bringing Thrawn back into canon. Here we go. It was huge news. And so he's a popular character. You didn't, I mean, a lot of times I feel like the creatives want to make their own new characters and they want to have their own creative spin and create something brand spanking new, and that's fine. Again, Ezra Bridger was that character for Dave Filoni, and then he pairs him with Thrawn, someone from Legends. So again, Dash Rendar is a character we all love. There's nostalgia. Bring that bad boy in, and then go ahead, use your character Kira and put Kira and Dash Rendar in the same freaking movie, and tell me that would not be a blockbuster hit.
Yeah,
like, seriously, I mean, that would be sick.
Yeah, or even if you do a game or something. I mean, I think that'd be a cool way to do it. I mean, Shadows of the Empire story is pretty cool because it really is very heavy on the criminal underworld. Prince Shizor, and
Yeah.
he finds out that Anakin is Darth Vader. I mean, that's like the opening, sort of the opening things of that book. It's pretty cool. And then Dash really kind of only exists in that one story. I mean, there's other routes you could go to. I think like like an animated Boba Fett series that could take place. I mean, there's still events, right? Like we thought in Bad Batch we were going to get Boba Fett meeting oh god, Omega.
Oh yeah, true.
Right?
Yep.
Because they're like sort of like special, right? They're the special clones, and never really got that. Never really got this big. So that's a moment that we know we should get at some point. That's still out there that we could see, and I think that could be something cool. I think that could be something they could explore. It kind of sucks that Book of Boba Fett went the way it did, because I think Book of Boba Fett could have been something really cool and really special. And again, whether it's because some of that content was maybe supposed to be in Rangers of the New Republic, which got canceled. And I mean, I think that is probably what happened, is that the original plan was, hey, some of that Mandalorian stuff we saw in Book of Boba Fett was gonna be in Rangers of the New Republic. Gina Carano gets fired, and that show gets canceled. So they've got to pull all that stuff in there, and then it kind of shifted. Maybe season 3 of The Mandalorian was supposed to be slightly different too. Who knows? It's hard to tell, but I think you can see the weight of that there.
Yeah.
So it's kind of hard to tell, like, because Book of Boba Fett wasn't received as well, like if there was going to be a season 2 of that, what was that going to look like? What stories could you have told differently, going on? I think a lot of that hinges on that. And I think some of that criminal underworld stuff that we could have seen there is now probably we're not going to get a chance to for a long time. But I think Star Wars, they said, hey, we want to explore the High Republic. Right. Let's do a big, huge dive into the High Republic, because there's all these different eras and kind of paths you could go down. And I don't think the High Republic has paid off. I mean, you just don't really see a lot of people talking about it. The one High Republic show they tried to do, colossal failure in The Acolyte. And now there's even reports that the budget was twice as much as everybody thought. It was more like 200 some million, which is insane to think about. And so where do you go from here? I think the criminal underworld could be it, but I'm just wondering if maybe they look at like Solo didn't do as well, and Book of Boba Fett didn't do as well, and maybe that's like, no, we're going to shelve that for some other kind of path to go down.
Yeah. Let me ask you a question. Do you think, and I'll give you my answer here too, do you think that Star Wars is sort of wasting its time with the stuff with the High Republic, or the sort of that pre-episode 1 era, and maybe even stuff like Dawn of the Jedi? This is crazy to say, Dawn of the Jedi, or even the Rey movie. Are they kind of wasting their resources and their time, and should they rather be focusing on just building out the Mandoverse?
Yes.
Okay.
100%. Yeah, I think the Mandoverse is where the money is. I think it's what people really want to see. I mean, eventually, yes,
eventually, yeah.
Yeah. High Republic, I actually don't think anyone really cares about, to be honest, unless you're going to go like they wanted. Like, the problem, this comes back to the Acolyte. The problem with the Acolyte is that it may have really ruined any chance we get of Plagueis.
Oh, I know.
Because
yeah,
I think I don't know, maybe like saving him for the end of a season 1 reveal is I actually structurally like a way to do it. I think they could have hinted at it more, that Plagueis was, maybe the one behind this whole thing.
Yeah.
Without really showing him. But they obviously wanted to tell a very different story and try to include that along with, I mean, that show is so jam-packed full of ideas. I mean, it's literally, they just were throwing darts at a wall being like, any idea we're going to cram into this show. I mean, there was way more problems with that show than,
yeah.
Whatever. So like we may never get live action Plagueis again, right?
Yeah.
Because now they may just say, we're gonna stay away from like that whole era.
Yeah. You want to hear something crazy? This is crazy, and this is major spoilers, by the way, for the Rey movie. All right, Rey. This is just gonna. I mean, this blows my mind. All right. So one of the big rumors, spoilers ahead here, is that they wanted to remember when Snoke came out. Snoke, and one of the theories around Snoke was he's Plagueis. Holy smokes. Somehow Plagueis survived. Now, clearly we as Star Wars fans would have bought that because we all bought that somehow Palpatine survived. So why couldn't we believe that somehow Darth Plagueis survived? And so we had these ideas that Snoke was going to be Darth Plagueis. Now we've seen The Acolyte, where essentially you've associated Darth Plagueis with a show that absolutely just fell flat and was pretty bad. It was review bad. It was the budget was huge and it flopped and it's bad and they've canceled it. So now you've associated with Darth Plagueis with that show. In the Rey movie, no joke, they wanted to bring, and one of the big rumors is they wanted to do Plagueis. They wanted to bring Plagueis back as if he had extended his life. It was this new, I'm going to give you the spoilers here real fast, which is essentially that Rey starts off that movie pregnant and she has a daughter, and it's Ben Solo's child who learns to use both dark and light. And again, Plagueis is back in the shadows, possibly going to use that child in a way to extend his life or something more. I'm not quite sure, but there's rumors circulating that they wanted to do something big with Plagueis later on. And then we just watched a show where they put Plagueis in and it bombed. So I don't know if that's ever, and that's, again, you might call me absolutely, I think it's not even a great idea to have Plagueis in the Rey movie. I don't think that would be a great idea at all.
Plagueis,
but, the fact that
Plagueis Snoke would have been a much better. It would have been a much better.
But they can't, Matt.
They can't go
They
back.
can't do that. They can't do. You know why? Because Ryan Johnson.
There was no play.
Said, Ryan Johnson said, "Hey, look, screw your Snoke theory. It's not going to be Darth Plagueis. I don't freaking think so." Ryan, who is he? Heck if I know. Ryan had no backstory for Snoke whatsoever. Am I correct?
No. Yeah, I mean he didn't, and I mean that's the. I mean, yes, sorry. Yeah, you're good. The problem, we did that episode last time, and we put a bunch of clips, and they got a lot of views, and people were talking about it and stuff.
It was a blast.
It was definitely a blast. But yeah, I mean the problem and the reason I sort of blame Ryan Johnson is that him saying J.J. Abrams didn't even want Mark Hamill, Luke Skywalker, in The Force Awakens. And I actually have always thought, I actually really don't like that scene at the very end. I thought it's the perfect ending of Rey just blasting off to go look for Luke. Right?
Exactly.
But Ryan Johnson goes to JJ and says, "Hey, I need this for my movie." So JJ says, "Okay." Well, Colin Trevorrow says, "Yeah, I need Snoke for my movie." And Ryan Johnson says, "Yeah, screw you. I don't care. I'm making my movie." Okay, well, so you're not willing to work as a team, and then you kill off Snoke, who they need for the third movie. And so that's where I've always sort of felt the blame is to put it onto Ryan Johnson, because he's the one that derails the whole thing. Yes, JJ Abrams still decided to bring back Snoke, or to bring back Palpatine somehow, but that's after he actually had a script where he wanted to try and explore the Mortis gods with Matt Smith, and Disney said, "Yeah, that's just too much. We're not going to do that." So he's now on a timetable, and so he has to do something. So, all right, well, fine. Fuck it. Somehow Palpatine comes back. You know what I mean? Somehow. I mean, so yes, JJ did decide to bring Palpatine back somehow, but he's on a time crunch timetable. You've got to get something going to get this thing on. And it's all because Ryan Johnson wasn't willing to play nice with Colin Trevorrow, where he said, "I'm making my movie and you're going to have to deal with it."
Right. Yeah. One of the things, for sure. They don't work well together.
It's really all, at the end of the day, it's all Kathleen Kennedy's fault for not sitting down and having a plan, because somehow at Disney, you've got Kevin Feige over at Marvel, who strings together 25 movies.
Yeah.
And he does it, by the way, by taking characters that were not, you go back to the early 2000s or 90s, and if you walked up to people on the street and said, "Name me 10 superheroes," I bet Iron Man's not even one of them.
Yeah.
Like Iron
Right,
Man,
right.
like the Hulk was by far the most recognizable character of that original Avengers group. Now
Yeah.
it's Iron Man. He's the biggest of the big. But I mean, they
Right.
essentially took B to even C level comic book characters and created this massive, massive, you know, industry essentially. Like
Mhm.
I mean, totally changed media forever by creating a cinematic universe. And they also did it, by the way, without some of Marvel's most recognizable characters. They weren't even allowed to use Spider-Man until the back half of
Sure.
the thing. And they did this entire thing without the X-Men and Wolverine because,
Yeah.
Fox still owned them. And on the other
Right.
side, you have Kathleen Kennedy as the lead creator of Lucasfilm and the one who's overseeing it. And they have Harrison Ford, Mark Hamill, and Carrie Fisher at the time, right? We didn't know
Mhm.
that she was going to die before the third movie, but
Right.
you've got her for at least 2 movies, and they can't even string 3 together.
Yeah. It's bad.
I
It's
mean,
real it's bad. Like when you look across the street and you're like, "Well, okay, Marvel Studios is over there literally just like you said, 25 movies. They use those other characters that were lesser known and they then attracted the big boys to come over and play, right? So they then were able like, "Hey, this is going so well." That you had other companies who had the rights to those characters start to play ball and say, you know what, actually, we need to get involved in that because that is a nice big fire we want to be involved with because they've done such a great job. How in the heck? And it's so weird to me. My original question to you was: is Star Wars wasting its time being in something pre-episode 1 or post-episode 9 when you actually had the Mandoverse, you had Grogu, which changed everything, and you have this setup here with 2 guys. You've got Dave Filoni, Jon Favreau working together like in that Mandoverse. Why would you divert your resources and attention outside of that? And look what has happened. You did divert them. You said, cool, we're going to go ahead and greenlight this thing over here called the Acolyte. And it ended up, you had something when you greenlit that, you actually had something that was literally cooking, as the kids would say, cooking. Right.
yeah.
And they literally just poured water on it and they said, let's just shut her down for a second. Then they went to like, it just gets derailed. Like you said, with the Rangers of the New Republic stuff, they've actually split story from the rumors that I've read. They've split story from that Rangers of the New Republic, Gina Carano series. They split that and put some of it in Book of Boba Fett, as Matt speculates. And then also a lot of it is going into Skeleton Crew. Now it's going to be, it's a part of that. So it is just, it's a fumble. It's a blunder and it sucks. And that is where it does all at the end of the day, go back to the leadership there. And I think if you're in a building, any sports team that's out there playing a game, when you fumble the ball or you make mistakes or you don't manage the clock well and you don't manage your resources well, like the criticism comes to the head coach, right? It comes down to like who you putting in, what are you doing? And so they do need to take some responsibility and stop blaming fans for the failures of some of these projects, right? It's like we have projects that we have all rallied behind and said, that is awesome. Give us more of that. And you said, all right, cool. Now all right, we did the thing. Now we're going to go over here and do our own politically charged thing. And
Right.
it's just, like, come on. I don't even care if you do that kind of stuff. Just you have to pair it well. You have to, know your target audience, know what you're trying to get. And otherwise you start a story then, right? I'm fine with you putting all the different, whatever, be intentional about, your female leads and all those different things and directors and whatever. But then you do them a disservice by not actually creating good stories that are going to get a season 2. So if they don't get a season 2, you just did your own agenda a disservice. So that sucks. I mean, God, it's
yeah. I mean, because look at you look at the argument. Woke is broke, right?
Yeah.
Go woke, go broke, right?
Yeah.
And we are seeing that more and more in media. I mean, that's that's one of the big criticisms of Ubisoft, right? And so yeah, like I agree with you. If you have something like if you're going to tell a story with an agenda, and I'll use another example here too. If you're going to tell a story with an agenda, the story has to be good enough to overcome the agenda, because the agenda is going to divide people, right?
Yeah.
And so, like, for me, I'll take what is arguably considered the best superhero movie of all time, The Dark Knight. You know, I mean, Avengers is out there too. I've always disliked the last like little bit in The Dark Knight when he has to use the cell phone towers and he can ping
Oh, yeah.
everywhere and see everything, because, you know, that was like during the time of the Patriot Act and government surveillance is like becoming a new thing.
Right.
And I've always felt like it, I mean, there is setup for it, but I always felt like that just kind of felt like a little like a political agenda at the end of this, which I love. I'm like the biggest Batman fan in the world.
Right. Yeah.
You know, I mean, like I love the movie. It's freaking amazing. You know, won
Yeah.
an Oscar. It's fantastic. But I've always felt like that was just kind of shoehorned in there a little bit at the end to be kind of like a little political statement. It's just always kind of rubbed me the wrong way. But the movie is so fantastic that it can overcome that. And, you know, it's like, yeah, it's one little gripe I have with it, but it's still an amazing movie. And it's like not the first thing I think of when I think of that. But if you're going to tell a story that has an agenda and the agenda is the majority of it, and then nobody watches it and you lose a bunch of money, then the agenda you were trying to help or set, it gets damaged because everyone's like, well, it's obvious it failed because of that agenda.
Yeah. And that's the thing. That is kind of what is happening. And people get really upset because they want this show to succeed. They wanted a season 2 of The Acolyte. And it's like, guys, I mean, I'm also cool with the season 2 of The Acolyte and all of the agenda that's in there or whatever, as long as season 1 is good. And when season 1 is not good, that's at the end of the day, that's sort of that's also a big tell, right? Like you as a company could decide we're going to move forward, take our losses. If you want to,
right.
Take your losses and just go ahead and make your 3 seasons of The Acolyte, do your thing, tell your story, push it out there. Don't care. Take your losses and say we did it. But clearly they don't want to do that, and that's not being tolerated right now.
I'll give you an example, right? Okay, so like a lot of like The Acolyte didn't fail because it was woke. It didn't fail because it was a female director or a female lead and a female lead actress and a female lead, you know, showrunner. It failed because the script was bad. And I'll give you another example to show you exactly why that's the case. Take Wonder Woman. Wonder Woman 1 was a female lead with a female director. And you know why it did? You know why it succeeded? Because the script was good and the movie was a good movie.
Yep.
Wonder Woman 2 had a female lead character and a female lead director. And you know why it flopped? Because the script was bad. It was bad. It was a bad script. The movie sucked. Yep. So like the product has to be good at the end of the day for it to break any barriers that you want. Like if the product sucks, nobody cares.
Yeah, it's something I heard. So with some of the High Republic series, like some of the authors there were given the green light to just put as many agenda things. They were agenda items into the books that they could or that they wanted. They were just sort of like, there's an author, I forget her name at the time. She just said like, hey, they said I could. They said yes. They said yes. They said yes. They said yes. And again, we're all cool with that as long as that book is good and it's going to sell and it's a story, because then you actually get the green lights for the second book and the third book and you can continue on, right? And all of a sudden we're sort of like Matt said, with even though it might be kind of like, all right, you know, whatever. And depending on who you are, I'm not saying one way or another about any of these agenda items. It's just that like a lot of people will still buy in, and you over time play this long game where you can sort of push through and do the thing that is important to your company, your vision, your philosophy. You can move it forward if you put out those good products and you bring people along. But right now it just seems like it's supercharged and everyone's, you know, fighting everyone, and it's bad. And then you actually get their own supporters, and you get some of the air quote shills who are now mad at Disney and Lucasfilm for not continuing Acolyte season 2. And you're like, well, hold on a second. Maybe that's because you're not listening to anybody else who's saying that there was a big disconnect. You know what I'm saying? There's a big disconnect between the Jedi and our understanding of them and the Force. And there were things the story was all over the place. That alone, the story was hard to follow. It was confusing. And it was also lines and dialogue were falling flat. You know what I'm saying? And I'll use Book of Boba Fett as an example as well. Book of Boba Fett was a male lead and a male showrunner, and
the story was all over the place, and that's why people didn't like it.
Right. Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's not like it's men versus women thing. I mean, both of them had stories that were not particularly great.
Yeah.
So that's why both of them didn't do well.
Exactly. Yeah. So anyway, it does go back all at the end of the day to the leadership there. It does seem like on an optimistic sort of note here that they are switching gears. I think the Acolyte did teach them something, and they said, all right, look, because Bob Iger's back, right? He's been,
Yep.
So they basically said, it's time to quit messing around. And I think they've looked at, didn't they say they're slowing down one TV show per year? I think, right? So Andor is kind of it for next year. We'll get the Skeleton Crew, and then we'll get Andor. And then we're gonna have a movie release late in 2025, and then we're going to go to one show, one movie a year. Somebody pointed out that from the time that Disney has had Star Wars, like George Lucas made, his 6 movies, and the Clone Wars animated series, and in over decades, right? Over from 1977 to like, over 2000, whatever it was, 12 or whatever, when he starts the process of selling Lucasfilm. And Lucasfilm since then, in one decade, has like tripled what George Lucas put out. So they're just putting out tons and tons and tons and tons of stuff. So the numbers, you look at that and you go, one, they haven't even got a return for their investment necessarily, or they have not yet sort of recouped some of their, that big buy. And then they've made triple the amount of products, and there's a disconnect going on. And so I think they're looking at this, and they're gonna try and reset. And I hope they focus their energy into the Mandoverse and say, let's just put our resources there. There is a series there. There is a lead into a big trilogy arc that can happen, which is the Imperial Remnant versus the New Republic. The New Republic in the freaking sequels is just destroyed. And the first thing, you never even see him, Matt. You never even see him. You know what? We haven't seen Coruscant since I don't even know when, dude. Like one of the most that bothers me so much.
Wasn't Coruscant was in with Dr. Pershing, who they just killed off? In Mando season 3 for that little bit. But yeah, I mean, we haven't done anything. That's just sort of like a little pit stop there, but we haven't done anything major there.
Right. And no one even knows what's happened to the Jedi Temple since then. We have no freaking clue. I mean, I'm still asking questions like, is Rey in her new movie going to go back to the Jedi Temple? And I almost would. I hate to say this. I bet it's not even been considered. I bet it hasn't even been. And that is a shame. That is a shame to me. If you were saying that you were going to do Rey Skywalker and the new Jedi Order, and you had yet to consider the Jedi Temple on Coruscant in your script, I guarantee if somebody's at Lucasfilm right now and you can contradict me, feel free to go right ahead and rip me up one side and down the other. But I almost bet you that they did not include anything with Coruscant in that script, and they didn't even think about it. And it just bothers. It's just nuts. So instead, it's going to their own creative. Let's go back to where Rian Johnson took us. Let's go to Octu. We'll set it up there, and we'll get out of here, man. There's stuff in the prequels that right now you have an audience, and it's us. It's you and me, and it's this age group that grew up with and loved the prequels and carried it through, and it became that product that was very robust and valuable that they sold. And so now we are your target audience. I mean, essentially, we should be like, we're going to go buy it. We're going to go watch it and everything. So take us back to some of those places, incorporate some of that stuff, make Rey better by taking her there to Coruscant and so on. Yeah. Sorry. Just,
no, you're fine. No. Yeah. It seems like a lot of the stuff they do just to say they did it. Right. I mean, like, you like with like, hey, let's have diverse, let's have diverse actors and showrunners and stuff like that. It feels like they almost just do it just to do it. And then that doesn't really help anything, right? Because you're not like helping drive the story. Like take a look at Star Wars Visions. I mean, like both seasons, there's an overwhelming fan support for people like, and that's a way almost to test, be like, what do you like? Because you're just giving us like 9 or 10 things. If you were like, I really like the Ninth Jedi, that story was awesome.
Right.
Like, we would like to see that expanded further. And they're like, we're just going to do another thing that's like that. So that way we can appease the anime, and Japanese. Like let's appease Japanese Star Wars fans by giving them something. Like literally, that's what it feels like they do sometimes. And then you say, when you actually have something that people are like, hey, we like this. Like, that's just not what we want to do.
Right. It's so weird. Yeah. You throw that out there for the appeasement or whatever. And then we are over here sitting like, dude, that was actually really sick. Are you guys going to double down on that and go after it? And they say, nah, we're good. We just did that. That's just a thing we did.
Yeah.
God, that sucks. That's actually some of the frustrations that, I mean, honestly, even John Boyega was voicing at Lucasfilm there for a while.
Well, it's like
So,
the Lego Star Wars stuff. I mean, I know it's just supposed to be Lego Star Wars, but like you can tell that they actually had like if you go back and look at some of those when they started redoing those, like the
right.
Lego holiday specials, like clearly, I mean, it's like Rey is training Finn to be a Jedi. So clearly, like somewhere they were like, hey, this is a plan for something.
Right.
Because it's
Exactly.
supposed to be like an idea, I mean, it's like idea. It's like post episode 9 content.
Yep.
And but is that going to go anywhere? Probably not.
Yeah.
I mean,
It just doesn't. Yeah. Doesn't go anywhere.
We just
Well,
don't know.
and actually, that brings me to something. Let's switch gears here for a second, and I'm gonna pull up. Got a doc here. I want to read through some things. So some of this stuff will be very spoiler. I'm gonna jump down to point number 6 here. And Matt just brought up we've been talking a little bit about the Rey movie. By the way, Matt, they're calling it one of the titles that's rumored is it's going to be Star Wars: A New Beginning. Is going to be like the title.
Well, they need a new beginning. So
I mean, they do, but I also thought like if that's the title, come on, guys, that cannot be the title. I'm just going to go give you some fan feedback here. That is a terrible title. Please don't do that one. I'm fine with the New Jedi Order or something like that. Just, it is what it is. There is a chance for them to come back and redeem. And I say redeem, I mean, but like they may really love the character and everything that they've done there. But there's I don't know. They really rub people the wrong way with the sequels and the treatment of Luke Skywalker and the Skywalker legacy. Let me say this before I dive into all that. Okay. Something that really irritates me. This is crazy. They basically, Matt, in the sequels, took the legacy characters and they made them all awful, essentially falling apart, very, very distant from the characters that we knew in episode 6 in each of them. Not just like, oh, maybe that's going to happen to just Luke and Han and Leia are still good. No, all of them are going to be at the worst point that they can be in. And so they basically subverted those characters and our expectations with those characters and didn't bring any nostalgia back to them. And then they went ahead and said, all right, cool. Yeah, well, Han and Leia, for sure. They definitely had a son. And, Ben Solo is here and whatnot. By the end of this series, they have literally just taken the strongest, they have something called Skywalker Sound, Skywalker Ranch. And they said, we're going to kill the Skywalker bloodline. We're going to destroy it. And that's what this whole series, that's why people want to know, why is the Rey Skywalker thing so upsetting? Because you took Han and Leia and you took, and we all also, whether you like it or not, we have legends in EU. And at some point, even George started to understand, like, the fans, the audience that I'm targeting, if I were to ever go to an episode 7, 8, and 9, they are already loving those stories. So although he would have done his own thing, he was smart enough to know they're affected by that. What is resonating with them and what is something that so just keep that in mind, that there's a reason why Legends did matter to fans who were buying and sending money back to Lucasfilm and publishing and all those different things. But by the end of the sequel series, they've just destroyed it. I mean, all those characters are gone. And Rey, who is a Palpatine, has destroyed essentially, like, Palpatine wins in the end. I mean, you know what I'm saying? Yeah. Like his descent. So Luke and Leia and Anakin Skywalker's bloodline doesn't live on. Palpatine's bloodline lives on. Even though she wants to call herself a Skywalker, which is fine, whatever. I'm not even that against it, whatever. But it's just the fact that Palpatine lives on. The enemy, the great enemy, he lives on. His bloodline will continue. And the Skywalker one, gone. Done.
Yeah.
Done. Just done, Matt. Forever. I mean, it is. You cannot bring it back. The only way they could do it is in this Rey movie is if they say that Ben Solo somehow died in the Force, laid his hand on her stomach when he brought her back to life, and he created life inside of her, and she is pregnant. That is the only way you could continue the Skywalker, Solo, Leia Organa, Solo Skywalker bloodline. And people are like, bloodlines don't matter, blah, 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 whatever. We have whole series in the EU where it is literally all about the Skywalker bloodline. It mattered to Snoke and Palpatine and everybody else. And so it is cool. Family was important to George Lucas. And so, Luke is not raised by Anakin Skywalker. He doesn't know Anakin Skywalker to save his life. What connects them is actually, that's his father. And he wants to know more about that father and what happened to him. And so he still senses the good in him. And he, he is still reaching out to him, trying to bring him back to the light, and he does succeed in that. And so that Skywalker legacy and story is just squashed by the sequels, and it's gone. So that I think is one of the things that they have not realized. Like, you had a chance to do it. You could have made Rey, and you could have just, like, Ben Solo could have. I mean, it's just a fumble.
Unless they want to go down the Mara Jade route.
That is the only other thing. That is the only thing. And they're not bold enough to do it. This makes me mad. It makes me mad that Lucasfilm is not bold enough to say, in the Heir to the Empire series, David Filoni, he's building out his Mando verse. He's got Ahsoka. He's driving in there with Thrawn. They're going to do probably, maybe, a trilogy set of movies where they're going to remake the Heir to the Empire, the Thrawn trilogy. In that trilogy is the first time we're introduced to a character named Mara Jade. Mara Jade, who was a hand to Emperor Palpatine. She was trained by Emperor Palpatine. So, Matt, there's a full recipe here for everything that you would want in Star Wars, all of their agenda stuff, right? You have a strong female character, Mara Jade. Okay, you could actually show her having a Force vision, carrying children, Luke Skywalker's children, unknowingly have a Force vision and say, hey, she tries to warn Luke. I can't. Every time I go to warn Luke about this, like, I can't even tell him. The moment she conceives, she has to deal with this idea that she has conceived. And Luke, she has a prophecy. She has a vision that his temple will be destroyed. Her children will die. She has to leave Luke and go somewhere, right? And she has to disappear. Luke is heartbroken by this, but he doesn't even necessarily know. Mara Jade's protecting them. You have motherhood, strong character, all these different things. You could continue it if you wanted to, and they won't. I know they won't. There's no way. It's too bold. It's too much. It draws too heavily upon a Legends character, Mara Jade, and they won't do it. I actually don't think they'll ever bring her back, and that is a shame because she is such a wonderful.
And it's just so
character.
I don't understand why. Like, why is it? Maybe because they don't want to distract from Ahsoka, right? I mean, I mean, like the idea, like, right? I mean, that's because I've always thought that that would be an interesting character. One, I've talked about the possibility of, I think they should bring back Starkiller because I think bringing back Starkiller would be a very cool way to it. I don't think they will, especially because my reasoning for it was always, we knew they were going to do an Ahsoka show. You could have the apprentice of Darth Vader versus the apprentice of Anakin Skywalker. Be a cool thing to see on screen. Sam Witwer, he's a good. I mean, he's a great actor, even as a on-screen actor. He was in he was in Smallville, right?
Yeah,
and he did a great job there. And of course, obviously, voice acting and everything. And he's very connected. He has also said some things a little negative about the Star Wars sequels, and maybe that's why they are maybe they won't bring him back. We will have to see. But I've always thought that would have been a really cool villain for Ahsoka to have to fight, but instead they did a lot of this visions of her fighting like dark side Anakin, right? Instead. So I kind of think that was the route they wanted to go with that, and we won't really ever see like a Star Killer. And I think Mara Jade's the same thing too. I think Mara Jade showing up in the Ahsoka series would be a cool thing, especially maybe she's dark side, but then you're going to have her and Luke meet, right? And how are you going to tell that story? And the route that they went with Luke in the sequels might mean we never see a Mara Jade.
I know, that's the thing. It goes back to this lack of planning and not having, you just getting the football and saying, I'm just going to run in any direction that I don't have no plan whatsoever. And so they went into the sequels without a plan. Clearly just even to finish those 3 movies, and then let alone what they were going to build out around it. Let me go back to something here real quick, because that's a really great point. I would love to have seen Ahsoka versus Starkiller, like Anakin's apprentice and versus Darth Vader's apprentice. You could actually still do that in a Thrawn movie or down the line. Thrawn in the trilogy goes back to the Emperor's storehouse where he finds clones, or where he finds, he finds weapons, special artifacts. You could find a Starkiller literally frozen. And you just bring him back out.
Kind of like that's what we kind of thought Jedi Survivor might have been.
Right.
And Cal Kestis finds a frozen person in carbonite, and he's like, oh, well, what's going, or not in carbonite, but he's like in stasis.
Exactly.
And he's like, well, what's going on here? And then, it goes its own route. I don't want to spoil that game for people, but it's
yeah. But that's a great example. It's like they already did that. That was a High Republic well, yeah, I won't spoil it, but someone from the High Republic. And so they are awoken. Like, you could do the same thing. It's just, do you have the nerve and do you have the kind of just push forward? I mean, George Lucas was sitting around a table and literally said, "Hey, I'm going to bring back Darth Maul." Everyone is sweating. Like, is he crazy? He just cut him in half. How can George Lucas say we're bringing Darth Maul back? So Lucasfilm no longer has that edge. They don't have people there anymore that will just say, you know what we're going to do? We're going to bring Starkiller back. We're going to put him in there. We're going to have him fight Ahsoka. Guess what else? We're not only are we going to have the apprentice of Anakin Skywalker, the apprentice of Darth Vader. We're going to have the apprentice, air quote, or acolyte, if you will, of Palpatine, Mara Jade. She was trained by Emperor Palpatine.
Right.
Why would you not have Palpatine's apprentice, versus Darth Vader's apprentice versus,
or
Anakin's
Palpatine's apprentice versus, like, I mean, she'd be a great character, even an older one, to deal with Rey. Because she was Palpatine's apprentice.
That's what I'm saying. Is that there is actually a story here. God, I wish Lucasfilm would just call us in. Just take it for free. Take the ideas.
But what you said is real interesting, is because, like, I saw somebody make this criticism of the Mandalorian, and I never really thought about it. And they're like, he fights, like, at the end of each season of the Mandalorian, he just deals with Moff Gideon every time, again and again and again, right? And he might still be alive. Like, we don't really see him die. And of course, we know he might have been out there doing cloning, and who knows what's, like, if they bring, like, I mean, Juan Carlo Esposito, great, amazing, actor. And I think there's more Moff Gideon, I think, out there that could be cool. But if he is like the villain again in the Mando movie, that I would have some serious faith lost in Dave Filoni.
I know, but here's the thing. Right now, if I had to bet on it,
I'd say he is.
That sucks. That shows us that Lucasfilm, that's what they've done. They're playing safe. They're taking some soft, and there's a problem too. They're playing wiffle ball. These are big bats with big balls, and they are striking out. It's pretty easy to play that game and like the connect bat with ball. The ball is freaking huge. It's a beach ball. Like the fandom gives you these beach balls to go out there and knock out of the park, and they're not doing it. And it just that's really, I guess, just sad for me to see, because there's so many cool and unique ideas, ways that you could weave in Legends characters into your own new created characters. Like Sabine is new and created by Dave Filoni. Cool beans, right? Ahsoka's his original character back when George owned it. That's all good and well. Like, now pull some of these characters. Timothy Zahn created Mara Jade. Let's go.
I'll ask you this. Yeah. How important, we know that there's a lot of stories that they've said they're going to do. We know Skeleton Crew is coming. We've even some of the leaks of that makes it seem like it's not actually going to be a kids show, which might be. But how important do you think this upcoming Star Wars celebration is?
Wow. Well, it's pretty important. I'll say this: everything post the Acolyte is extremely important for this company and for the faith that we have in them and for what they're going to deliver. The Skeleton Crew is going to be extremely important, and I think they have high confidence and high faith in that show. Star Wars Celebration, they have a chance to, again, reignite the fandom, tell us where you're going, give us your vision. You remember when Kathleen Kennedy came out and she had all those different TV shows, and she said it's a new era, Disney Plus streaming. She announced all the different shows that were coming out, and she had this, one by one. We had like 15 shows up on the screen, and we were like, oh my God. She was even announcing, Willow and Indiana Jones and all this different stuff. And a lot of those have come and gone, and some never got made. Some did get made and flopped, and a couple were successful. So I do believe that this next Star Wars Celebration, we need a better direction. I think we need a clear, we're all going to be watching. We're going to be watching. They're going to be enjoying it over there. We have the big 50th coming up in a couple years. And so they need to set their company, they need to set a direction and move their resources and direct their people to pull off really good products that bring us all back either to the theater or to our screens week in, week out, where we're watching like the Mando. Either it's, something, Ahsoka season 2, something on Disney Plus. They want to pair it with a TV show and a movie. All of that would be great. They think there was great success in Mandalorian. Was it season 2 or whatever with Luke when we had Rise of Skywalker and all that was going on during the same month? It was a huge buzz. And so they want to create those moments again. We want that too, but we want you to tell us where you're going and give us a direction and guide us there. It seems so scattered and we seem so all over the place, and we're almost making news and keeping ourselves relevant just by announcing stories and saying we're doing this and we're not doing that. Part of the problem, another problem that I noticed, okay, Leslie Headland, for example, before there's been a couple directors that have kind of let leak that they're working or writing scripts and doing some pre-production stuff for Lucasfilm to almost strong arm the executives into creating that show. You know what I'm saying? Like letting leak these ideas and things that they're working on, so that way the show gets produced and made, because there is a little bit of a
buzz. Yeah.
A buzz. And so people are like, it's starting to get some attention. And Leslie Headland kind of did that with The Acolyte, and look what happened. And so now, we're losing a little bit of faith. And Andor will come back out, and it will, I think, Skeleton Crew and Andor, you could go 1, 2 right there and bounce back, and then from there you've got to carry it. No more fumbles.
Yeah, the Dave Filoni, the whatever the first movie is that comes out, which seems like it's going to be the Mando movie.
Yeah,
that movie has to hit. Or you're in a real serious, you're in a totally different conversation, because, I mean, the last movie was the Rise of Skywalker, and it's great. I mean, we haven't had a Star Wars movie. I mean, since we're in October of 2024 right now. I mean, it was 19. I mean,
crazy, dude. It's crazy.
And think of how many Marvel movies we've had since then. I mean, it's just it's still the thing that baffles me. I just don't understand how. They talk like how they can just pump so much out of Marvel, and they can't even come close to doing the same with Star Wars. I mean, like, there's definitely Marvel shows that I didn't like. Like I didn't like She-Hulk. I mean, there were parts of it that I thought were okay, but overall, I was just kind of whatever. I actually really liked WandaVision. I think the internet didn't like it as much as I did.
Yeah.
But I mean, I think that, Loki was fantastic. And, those are just shows, let alone some of the movies. I mean,
right.
No Way Home, which, Sony has a little more stake in. But I mean, it's just so weird that company can crank out so much, and on like the same side of the, at the same company, right? I mean, it's like, you just look down a hallway and you look at all the big things that Disney has going. You got the parks, and you got like ESPN and ABC, and then you got Marvel and Star Wars, which would be like right next to each other. And it's like one side is just absolutely dominating everything they do. I mean, like Marvel's blunders are like, CGI is kind of bad here or whatever. I mean, Marvel's in its sort of, they had kind of a rough little patch, but it seems like on Star Wars, it's like just run way worse.
Yeah, it is. And it just seems like it's rubbing their fandom the wrong way too. And it's like you've got a lot of these battles and stuff going on in the fandom. And again, it comes down to the agenda setting stuff that we talked about beforehand. And they're just not pulling it off well. They're not executing it well. And then their communication with the fandom, I also think is sort of has been a bit. We're big fans, dude. Here's the thing. You and I love freaking Star Wars, right? We want it to be successful. And like we'll eat a little bit of your agenda stuff or whatever it might, whether we like it or not. Some of us do, some of us don't. But we'll go with you on that if you execute well, and we're just not doing it. And then again, you're seeing it in Marvel, as Matt's saying, you're seeing it across the street being executed properly. And it's just disappointing to sit over here in our fandom and go, what the heck, man? Like, why can't we pull this off? It's everything is just we're so cautious, and we're so, this is going to be controversial. I almost agree with people in terms of your Acolyte show. Just go make 3 seasons then. If you really believe in it that much, just go freaking make 3 seasons of it. And then when you're done with doing your thing, go switch your focus and go make your Dawn of the Jedi stuff and build that out. Then go just march right along and do what you want to do. One of the keys to George Lucas was he said, I'm going to do what I want to do. And I'm not going to let the studio get in my way. He was ready. He was ready to do whatever he needed to do to make his movie the way he wanted to execute his vision. And right now, there are too many cooks in the kitchen over there, too many different visions, too many different directions. The agenda that they're setting is controversial, and it's not being paired well with good, well executed shows. So that's our that
and it extends beyond Star Wars, right? I mean, it is Lucasfilm as a whole. Like the Indiana Jones movie didn't do as well as they'd hoped. The Willow show was like a one and done. So I mean, it's not even just Star Wars. It's a Lucasfilm problem.
Right. Exactly. And that you're right. That says a lot. So, I mean, it's they've got to square things away. They really do. They've got to pick something. One of the news items. The Rey movie is tabled. They've decided to set that aside. Why? Because they have 2 to 3 different ideas that have come in, different writers. You have I forget her name, but she's the director of it. She has pitched the idea to Daisy Ridley. Daisy Ridley said it's freaking sick. But now you have other writers and different people who were coming in either before that and after it, and the studio has looked at it and said, guys, this feels like a side quest. This feels like a small little side quest. It's not really overcoming the hype of the rise of Skywalker or this big Palpatine villain. You brought back this villain that you can't extend beyond there. The sequels was a chance for them to. Here you go, Rian Johnson. Here you go. Let me speak to Rian Johnson, J.J. Abrams, Kathleen Kennedy, and everybody there at the sequels. You had a chance in the sequels to build up a new villain. You had a chance to create this Supreme Leader. Snoke had us. We were in The Force Awakens like, dude, who is this guy? What's with the scar on his face? You know, I mean, what's the beef between him and Luke Skywalker? Did he get to our Luke and did something happen? You had a chance to build that guy up. And Ryan said, he's actually nothing. And JJ said, what? There's nothing to this guy. That was our big villain that we were going to build up. Supreme Leader Snoke was our original idea, and you cut him in half, and now we have no original big bad to go with, so we've got to bring back Palpatine. And so you bring back Palpatine to be your big bad. Now you go to the Rey movie, and you don't have a big bad. You don't have anybody. You don't have any of Snoke's underlings or anybody else. You killed the one you created. You cut him in half. You brought back Palpatine, killed him again. And now you're like, well, what are we going to do for that new Rey movie? Well, let's go back to Plagueis. Let's go back to Plagueis and see if we can bring him back. Are you kidding me? Like you talk about, it's just a cluster, man. It's an absolute cluster. It drives me insane.
And that's why I still say I think like that decision to kill Snoke just derailed. So I mean, it derailed the third movie, regardless of anything else. It derailed the third movie because Ryan said, "I'm going to make the movie that I want," and Colin Trevorrow, well, I just don't really care. Too bad. Like I'm making the movie that I want. And since then, it's been a cataclysmic shift. And yes, people along the way could have done something different. Like, JJ, I think JJ was put into a really bad spot because it was a time crunch and he had to come in and make the movie that he
I don't blame
had to make. Yeah. And we know that there were leaks of him even having a script that was closer to Colin Trevorrow's. And Disney said, no, you can't do that. And he's like, all right, well, he wants to play ball with Disney, which is fine because you don't want to rub people the wrong way.
Sure.
So, I mean, like, when he talks about the decision to bring back Palpatine in some of those interviews and things like that, it seems like it's more not like when I decided to bring back Palpatine. It's when we decided, as in like when Disney decided we're just going to bring Palpatine back. Right. Yeah. And it'll just band-aid him on to the sequels and it should fix everything. So, yeah, I mean, that's why I still say it's the biggest cataclysmic shift in all of Disney's Star Wars because it has set everything up for failure, essentially. I mean, it's such a big deal because that's the first domino that fell that caused everything else to have to kind of go in and play patchwork with it. And a lot of people left us comments and everything like, yeah, but they did that in the expanded universe and stuff like that too. But the expanded universe went all over the place. There's tons of books that are just their own stories. And my argument for that in our past thing is that because of that decision, they've had to go back and try to make it work. Not that the shows could essentially be like their own thing and their own identity, right? Like one of the only shows that is Andor. And that's why I think Andor's, Andor's
It's sick,
yeah, absolutely fantastic. But
dude.
yeah, we could rag on the
Let me
sequels. Yeah.
one more. I
Yeah.
just because I just want to pull this out here. One of the points that was mentioned there was that like there was foreshadowing for a lot of different things. The return of Palpatine. And I think I said to you, I said, the conversation we had there, people were missing the point. Yes, whatever decision you make in The Rise of Skywalker or The Last Jedi, you will have other projects supporting that narrative. The problem is that the creative decision to kill Snoke forced an unplanned creative decision to bring back Palpatine, which undermines the originals and Anakin's sacrifice. And those terrible, unplanned creative decisions now have to be supported by additional gap-filling narratives from books and other TV shows. That was kind of our point, right? Is that like you essentially, they're unplanned, these decisions. If they're all planned and you want to build that up and your whole idea was to kind of build up this big return to Palpatine, cool beans. Was there foreshadowing for it? But Rey even does a little forward jab that looks kind of like Palpatine in Revenge of the Sith or whatever,
Right.
which was cool. Yes, The Force Awakens set up a ton of different avenues that you could take. And if The Force Awakens sets it up and the novel sets it up there, right, as was said, why didn't Rian Johnson follow through on those? Why didn't he continue to set that point up?
Right.
Why was there nothing
Right.
in the Last Jedi that continued to set that point up?
Why does J.J. Abrams say, "Oh, we decided to bring Palpatine back for Rise of Skywalker," as in it was a decision we just made?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Yeah, I mean, it was very much obviously a decision that they made for that movie specifically, right?
Yeah.
Why did Colin Trevorrow leave if Colin Trevorrow if Palpatine was just supposed to come back the entire time? He left because he didn't want Palpatine to come back. The director, the director of a movie who had also directed big movies. He had directed Jurassic World. It's not like he's a nobody or anything. I mean, he's directed big blockbuster movies. It's like, yeah, screw you, Disney, I'm out, because he wasn't given the creative control that Rian Johnson was given. So
so clearly there's an issue there. And one of the things some people will often say, well, the original trilogy 4, 5, and 6 wasn't planned out. That wasn't planned out by George. You guys, that's the originals. Like that's the whole. You can get away with that, even if I agree with you on that and say, oh yeah, you're right. They weren't planned out. Once they're set in stone, that is canon.
That's it.
That is the pillar upon which you have to build upon, right? So your sequels kind of have to. It's just, and that's the whole point. The undermining of Palpatine was the biggest issue there. Anakin's sacrifice there was sort of the biggest issue, and it just blows my mind that like. Again, that's the creator, George Lucas, doing whatever he wants to do. If he had freaking twin sons setting on Tatooine, he had Luke and Leia wearing both white. Turns out they're twins later on. Oh, he didn't plan that out. Blah, blah. I don't care whether he has ideas and impressions and things that he wants to implement down the line, and they came to him. He is God in that universe. He is the creator and such. So anyway, that was my last point I wanted to make, because they're terrible. It's a terrible creative decision. Again, you created Snoke to be your big bad. Disney said, this is sick. Supreme Leader Snoke, here we go. And he cut him in half. And they had to bring back an old villain. Now in the Rey movie, they have no villain. They want to bring back Plagueis. Acolyte just killed the chance of doing anything like that. It's sorry. Could go on for ages. All right. Done with the ranting. Let me couple things on a good note here. It's like, man, I get all fired up over here, dude. God. Okay, couple cool things just to wrap up shop here, and then we'll let Matt go. Have him back. Let's see. Ewan McGregor wants to make Obi-Wan Kenobi season 2, and he is down to do a Clone Wars era flashback with armor. I actually thought that was kind of sick idea. You know what I mean? To say I'm like, because you and I have kind of talked a little bit about like Clone War, or I'm sorry, Obi-Wan Kenobi season 2. Would that be a good idea? Would that not? A lot of people don't want to see him leave Tatooine again because they feel like that might mess up some things. But doing some flashbacks or having Quinlan Vos show up on Tatooine or someone else coming there, there is possibly a story there. So I just want to get your thoughts real quick on what do you think about an Obi-Wan Kenobi season 2?
Yeah, I think they should do it. I think it would be received well, because I think, it's one of those things where, hey, you had some ideas in season 1 that didn't pan out. And I think you could take those ideas and improve upon it in a season 2. I mean, people want to see Hayden and Ewan back, and I think they could do it just fine.
Yeah, I think so too. I think it'd be sick, and I really hope they do. That's again a gold mine they're sitting on. That should be one of those shows that they target in 2026 or 27, whenever, and you should pair it with some epic movie that's coming out, and I think that would be a gold mine. Two more I want to hit real quick here. We're gonna very, very quickly, spoiler alert here, big time for anybody who's interested in this. Matt and I were just kind of talking about it a little bit. Skeleton Crew, it's gonna be dark. It's gonna be super dark.
Not a kid.
It is not a kid's show. Not a kid show. I loved hearing that. I was like, okay, cool. There are kids in it. It seems like it's going to involve the Chiss ascendancy. It is going to involve Thrawn's people. Eli Vanto is rumored to be in the movie. Ezra Bridger, Ahsoka. It's going to be big. So I just wanted to throw out some spoiler stuff there for you guys. It's something to look into. Be ready for it coming in December. And I think it's going to be epic. It's looking like it's going to be well received, and they have a lot of confidence in it. So, all right, we'll come back. We have some other things we'll do in a different time, different episode, because we still got more. We got Andor to talk about. We still have, and again, we'll start with one topic, as Matt and I do, and we'll end back up at the sequels. Just going. I can't help myself this episode.
Oh, it's fine. We can go all day.
We could go all day. It's unbelievable. So, but all right, dude, we'll come back. We still got that. We still have a genius idea that we're sitting on. We're gonna bring to you guys. We're gonna start working.
Oh yeah. That's
some good.
That's
stuff.
that's a little ways in it. We got to iron some things out with that, but I think that'll be fun.
Yeah, but this is the right time. It's the right time of year to do it. So, all right, buddy. Hey, hey, Bengals are playing later today. Going to be rooting for them. When do the Steelers play? They play here in a little bit.
They play here in a little bit. Yeah, I think 1:00. Yeah.
Okay. Oh shoot. Okay. Yeah, we gotta get on that. Okay. Friends, thank you guys for listening so much. Again, Matt's links are all down in the description. Where can folks find you there, Sir Matt?
Anywhere on the internet at Super Gainsboroughs.
All right. So we'll have links down there below. Go check out the clips, by the way. They are blowing up. I love when he clips these up because they just go viral, dude. So keep doing it. It's so much fun just to see them and to see the comments, and it's good. It's good times. So, all right, friends. Hey, thank you guys so much. We appreciate you. And as always, may the Force be with you.
It's over, Commander.
Did you hear that?
Don't underestimate the Force.